At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Coming up on this episode of the Mario Rosenstock Podcast.
For my sins, at one stage, the government asked me to chair the housing agency. So while I was originally trained as an architect, you would think I knew something about housing. I didn't. Nothing about it. It's a whole separate ecosystem. And I learned a huge amount about it. And at the end, somebody did a kind of an interview with me and asked me what had I learned. And I said, to my amazement, I learned that housing is first and foremost an emotional issue. It took me 5 years to learn that.
Yeah.
And once you understood that, you understood everything.
If you've been a regular listener to the show over the last couple of years, you'll know that the topic of housing and the housing crisis has come up time and time again in various different forms. Sure, why wouldn't it? It's affecting almost everybody in some shape or form, directly or indirectly. We've had lots of guests from completely varying angles that are hugely successful in the world of writing, acting, performance, for example, but who can't afford to buy a home or only recently did buy a home at a later age. And who have been looked at unfavourably, very unfavourably at times, by the banks for a mortgage. And it's come up in my conversations with campaigners like Rory Hearne and Ciaran Crazy House Prices, as well as my conversations with Taoiseach Micheál Martin and Pascal Donoghue and others. And it's a subject that my special guest, Conor Skehan, has a lot of experience in and a lot to say about. Conor is an expert in planning and architecture, and in 2013 the government appointed him as chair of the housing agency, a role he held for 5 years. And in that time, Conor learned a lot about housing, not just the facts and figures and the big picture stuff, but why it's such a complex, emotional issue that we find so hard to fix. He's got a lot of strong opinions about this, and he doesn't hold back.
And in my early naive days of standing in front of these microphone things, I made the mistake of using plain language and saying things like, housing crises are normal.
Yes.
I got killed for that one.
Did you?
I did, completely.
Were you chairman of the housing agency at the time?
I was.
Good man.
This enormous room full of all bankers, and I said, property, it's going to collapse. It's going to lose about 50 to 60% of its value. It'll all happen in the next 12 to 18 months, right? And I said, if you don't believe me, you don't have to, but I've sold all my property. And then as I was leaving, unbeknownst to him, as I was being led out, I overheard him say to his PA, never waste our time with that kind of rubbish again.
Please say one or two of those things now.
I won't touch them.
You don't want to say them
Never
now?
work again.
Really?
Never.
You won't say them to me now?
No, never work again.
I'm to take it that one or two of your views are construed as being controversial by the environmental...
I am the environmental thing. I own and run the oldest, biggest environmental consultancy in Ireland. Right? I am that problem, but I am in the middle of that problem saying, this is not true.
My full chat with Conor Skehan coming up in just a few minutes' time. But first, well, listen, this week, Leo Varadkar released his autobiography. It's called Speaking My Mind. And as with all books these days, there's an audio version available. And we got our microphones from the Mario Rosenstock podcast into the recording of this special event. Have a listen.
If you look at Muhammad Ali, right, boom, boom.
Okay, everybody, thank you for coming in to read for Leo's autobiography, the audio
guys.
version, Speaking My Mind. Yes, Simon?
I just want to be very clear about this and get a group selfie here.
right. Expensive. Okay, Chapter 7. Yes, Minister. Leo.
At only 34 years of age, I become one of the youngest ministers for health in history. I'm an immediate success, universally popular in cabinet. I suggest revolutionary changes, but Enda hummed and hawed.
All right. Enda was a somewhat comical figure. A kind of a cross between Frank Spencer and Chauncey Gardner. He would go on these long-winded stories, often leading to nowhere, boxing analogies that sent everyone into a coma. Boom, boom, he'd shout as we passed out with boredom. Hang on, Leo.
Continue.
He did promote me, though, to Minister for Social Protection by shafting Joan Burton.
Joan Burton?
Enda, did you shaft me?
I did nothing of the sort.
Joan?
Joan had made a complete balls of social protection by single-handedly destroying the Labour Party and imposing swinging cuts on the poverty-stricken punters.
Yeah.
Thereby paving the way for the psychopath, okay? Alan Kelly to take a... Hang on, Leo!
I'm just speaking my mind.
Okay,
sir,
guys, take a break. Shh. Chapter 9, I'm coming out.
It was time for me to come out as a gay man. I knew this would be one of the most important moments in Irish political history. The person I chose to come out to publicly was Miriam O'Callaghan.
Miriam?
Thanks. Miriam hadn't been my first choice. The truth was Pat Kenny was on holidays. Again, lol. It was a Friday and Vincent Brown wasn't available either. And Dermot and Dave on Today FM wouldn't do it as I'd done Ask Me Anything the week before. Leo, what the
Please go ahead, Miriam, please.
But I knew Miriam would give it the old crocodile tears, the genuine treatment. And it worked to treat Leo, you bollocks.
Okay, chapter 11, running as Taoiseach.
I enjoyed meeting Kylie Minogue. She used to tell me before meeting me her heart would go padum. I told her that might make a good idea for a song. Things were going great. I loved running. And as Taoiseach, I was looking slim and, to be honest, quite ridey. I was hitting it off with other world leaders like Justin Trudeau.
Okay, come in, Canada. Justin?
Hi, Leo.
J-Dog.
Go ahead, Justin.
Myself and Justin ran together in Phoenix Park. The Canadian leader wasn't as quick as me, and I had to slow down so that Justin could keep up with my blistering pace. Then I had another gem of a genius idea. I suggested we wear matching socks. Justin thought it was a silly idea, but it's since been regarded as one of the most brilliant PR coups by our world leader in the 21st century. What?
Take a break, guys. Chapter 16, COVID.
My speech from Washington, D.C. has been compared to JFK's inauguration speech. Pascal Donoghue, one of my minions in cabinet at the time, once reflected...
Pascal.
Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Winston Churchill, Leo Varadkar. If there was a Mount Rushmore, I thought that... I never said that.
Okay, Leo.
I allowed Pascal to think he was the power behind the throne. But the truth was, I was pulling all the strings like a master puppeteer.
Sorry, is this in the fiction section in Ethan?
Mary Lou MacDonald, on the other hand, was a constant thorn in my side.
Mary Lou.
I know it sounds weird, but I think Mary Lou fancied me. What?
Here,
Just
Leo.
read it.
She used to look at me, finding me unattainable, her posh schoolgirl eyes boring into mine, raging with desire. Excuse me.
Leo.
We would ritually trade insults across the floor. You stupid slag, I would roar.
Where's that, Leo? I can't see that one.
Leo's mind was so quick, my responses were slow and tepid, and the Ciaran Corla would often yell,
Deputies!
Thanks, Ciaran Corla.
Is that my only line, yeah?
Yep.
But it was clear, I was the man, the boss. King Kong ain't got nothing on me.
Here, Leo, I'm having nothing more to do.
My mind.
Nasty.
And exclusive comedy every week on the Mario Rosenstock Podcast. And you can contact me, of course, directly if there's anything on your mind. MarioRosenstock@gmail.com. You can contact me about the show, about guests you'd like to see, about criticisms you have, constructive, of course. You can lay all the compliments on me and Patrick you want, if you want. And you can suggest sketches or new characters that I haven't done that might be a good idea. Indeed, you could even hire me if you want to, or come and see me in person. I'm on tour starting on the 3rd and 4th of October, all over the country, from Ennis, Cork on the 9th and 11th of October, and Dublin's Gaiety 16th, 17th and 18th of October, with Gift Grub Live 25, your last chance to see this show, which sold out 3 Arena. Even if I am blowing my own trumpet there. And don't forget our sponsor, deluxebathrooms.ie, and their autumn super blockbuster sale. You can get up to 70% off Europe's biggest bathroom brands. Transform your bathroom for less. Upgrading your bathroom doesn't have to be expensive, folks, so why not capitalise on these amazing offers while they last? You can visit the showrooms themselves and take the first step toward designing a bathroom you'll never want to leave. They're located in Dundalk Retail Park and Eastgate Retail Park, Little Island in Cork. Make your dream bathroom a reality with Deluxe Bathrooms. Okay, so time to meet my guest, Conor Skehan. We kicked things off in a slightly quirky fashion. Why are you here?
To tell you a joke.
Go on then.
Let's give everybody a free house. That'll solve everything. Or would it? Well, do you want your free house in Ballsbridge or in Leitrim? No disrespect to Leitrim. Mm-hmm. Do you want a 1-bed, 2-bed, 5-bed? With or without a garden? And you can imagine, once you start to go on, any kind of reductio ad absurdum works incredibly well to display the oversimplification of everything to do with housing, because they talk about houses as if they're little boxes you move around. For my sins, at one stage, the government asked me to chair the housing agency. So while I was originally trained as an architect, you would think I knew something about housing. I didn't. Nothing about it. It's a whole separate ecosystem. And I learned a huge amount about it. And at the end, somebody did a kind of an interview with me and asked me what had I learned. And I said, to my amazement, I learned that housing is first and foremost an emotional issue. It took me 5 years to learn that.
Yeah.
And once you understood that, you understood everything. And the understanding of that then came from this thing. Maslow has this thing called a hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
And they're the things that drive human action and emotions. And
It's like shelter.
Shelter is at the absolute bottom. Yeah. So there are a small number of things like oxygen and shelter if you don't have.
Yeah.
And
this denotes our basic need.
Exactly. Now, the problem with that basic need is once something is in at basement level like that, it takes very little to provoke very strong emotional reactions. And there's so many people out there who happily just keep pressing that trigger point over and over again. And you can press it to show sad stories of somebody with a child who can't get a house, or an old person who can't get a house, etc., etc., etc. And it's just completely manipulable, if you want to call it that. And one of the things that I have learned in lots of the other fields of my work is that opinions are insoluble in fact. A fact will not dislodge an opinion. And opinions are the bane of the world we live in, particularly opinions either unsupported by data or that flatly contradict data. So I remember very clearly walking up Marion Square with the then Minister, Owen Murphy, pleading with him to stop the exercise of endlessly counting houses and homelessness and this, that, and the other. It's a numbers game. You're never going to win it, because as soon as you've said, we've met that target, they say, well, what about this target? And it's like those games, the Jenga thing where you pull out bits of sticks and the whole thing collapses. Philosophers and economists have an expression called a wicked problem. And a wicked problem is something that if you solve for one factor, the other factor fails over and over again. And you just make yourself a complete victim over and over again. It was very interesting to watch what happened when Dara, what's his name? O'Brien became minister, because he basically turned to the first interviewer. I happened to be standing outside the door the day he gave his first interview. And he just basically said, PFO.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not talking to you. That's stupid.
Yeah.
And poor old Owen Murphy, as generous and big-hearted and sensitive a human being as you imagine, made the fool for the previous couple of years of answering every question put to him, Remember Brian Lenihan said to Olivia, Olivia, the Pharisee of consistency, And he went off to talk about greyhounds or something like that. And that's it. So it's this huge, big elephant trap, and we all keep walking into it over and over again.
As you and I are right now then, in a way.
You asked me out, buddy.
Yeah, and you accept it with glee, attempting to financialise yourself. Come here. Okay, well, let's roll it back then.
Yeah.
Do we have a housing crisis?
Of course we do.
Explain what our housing crisis is.
I'm glad you asked that. Well, if we got somebody to sit down with their little laptop in front of them and take the word housing crisis and tip it into Google and then insert any country in the world's name, Sweden, Australia, New Zealand, United States.
Canada. I have noticed, accepted. I do. I have said that, and this has come up on the podcast before, that there is a housing crisis in Australia, that there's a housing crisis in many European countries. Yeah. There's a housing crisis in London.
That's right. And as Winnie the Pooh might say, we can't all be wrong. Right?
Go on.
Winnie the Pooh didn't actually say that.
Go on.
I just made that up. You can cut that out.
No. Go on.
The fact that it's a universal issue means we've got to be looking for universal causes. So it's not Dara's fault, and it's not Taoiseach's fault, and it's not anybody's fault.
Well, then can I change? What,
You're going to have to let me get to the answer.
But can I change the question then?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that the housing crisis, from what you've just said then, isn't peculiar to Ireland,
no.
Isn't extraordinary to Ireland,
no.
Isn't an extraordinary housing crisis in relative to other countries?
That's right.
But that it's a global issue.
It's a global issue. And in my early naive days of standing in front of these microphone things, I made the mistake of using plain language and saying things like, housing crises are normal.
Yes.
I got killed for that one.
Did you?
I did, completely.
Were you chairman of the housing agency at the time?
I was.
Good man.
Yeah.
That can happen.
Yeah, exactly. Bear pit. Walked into it. Bear.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of time to reflect on my lack of wisdom earlier. One of the things I kept trying to do, I'm always interested in asking about questions two ways. There's the ultimate cause and the proximate cause. So the proximate cause is the bear ate you, right? But the ultimate cause is you being stupid enough to go into the woods at night with a ham sandwich in your pocket. Yeah. So that was the ultimate cause. Yeah. So in terms of housing, I applied that lens, and I kept going back and back and back, trying to find out what the problem was. And we jokingly earlier, when we met, used the word financialization. Financialization is it's a cancer that's spreading throughout the world at the moment. And it is affecting a lot of things and turning them into commodities, and the commodities are valued by their increase or lack of value. So that's what financialization means. And it's one of those slippery thoughts that financialization can look a lot like commercialization.
Okay.
So commercialization is, I invent a new spoon and people think they're great. They buy more, I get more, and I commercialize my spoon idea.
Yeah.
That's commercialization.
Fair enough.
Basic capitalism, good thing.
Yeah.
Good thing. Financialization is somebody sees my spoon and says, oh, it's a great idea. I will buy the copyright of that, or I will buy the futures of that, or I will buy a machine for making them for you and rent it to you. So I have financialized it.
So you turn something that, let's say, is a common Maslow theory need into a financial instrument.
Correct. And that's one of the huge complications about housing. Housing is one of those things that's polyvalent, my big word for today. It's many things at the same time. And it's like a crystal. And you turn it around from this side, and it's an absolutely fundamental human right.
Okay.
That is true.
Correct. So
it's also an investment grade asset.
Exactly. So let's stick to that, what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
So yes, what housing?
I was going to stick to it.
Housing is a shelter and it's a need.
It's about 5 different things.
Yeah, so, but it's also an asset.
It's an asset. It's a social signifier.
It is.
I am my address. Yeah. What we haven't mentioned is it's a service. It keeps the rain off my head and the rats out of my feet, So it managed to be a whole bunch of things all at the same time. It's an economic productivity amplifier. It's a whole lot of things all at the same time. And one of the consequences of it being that means you can say almost anything and be right. And that means when you take that plausibility and you fuse it with the emotionality. So anybody can say anything about housing and they will always be right. And they'll always be able to poke you in the belly and make you angry or upset. So that goes back to my original statement then, that I discovered that housing is an emotional issue. Once you understand it's an emotional issue.
It's a media commodity as well.
Yeah, right. This building thrives on it. How many people have you had in already talking about it? And they'll always be able to spin a line. They'll always be able to construct a narrative, as we grandly say these days, around it. And it will be internally true. It will be true. So if you talk about it as a financial asset, everything you say makes sense. It's true. If you talk about it as a human right, everything you say makes sense and is true. And they're all there at the same time. That's what's called a wicked problem. So you'll solve for X, but Y falls out, etc., etc., etc. Realising that only does one thing. It means that you realise you'll never fix the problem. Again, former chair of housing agency gets killed for saying you'll never fix housing. The best you'll do is you make it least bad. That's a good thing to do. Now, in my moments of wilder grandeur, I think that I'm not the only person saying this. So I looked to see who else was saying it. And to my delight, no less a person than President Xi of China looked around the ruins of Evergrande and said, guys, to his citizens, a house is a service. It's a thing to live in. If you think it's an investment, you're mad. That's what he said to his people after they had built, I don't know how many, 100 million useless apartments. So that's how universal it is. It's going on everywhere. And the root is this word financialization. I don't know how you stop it, except by saying that we have lots of other mechanisms in an economy for dealing with things that are assets, stocks and shares and things that have value just for being there. And there are various unpopular things like rules, regulations, tax, and that's how you manage an asset. And if we want to think of our houses solely as assets, well, then we're going to have to bear the burden of the fact that there are rules about assets.
You've just made the housing crisis, in inverted commas, 20 times more complicated than it already was.
I can go now. If I'd done that, if I'd made you realise that...
Because you've now brought it, you've basically become a financial philosopher. And you've now added financial philosophy to the already existential issue of housing. Well, let me just bring it back to...
I'm going to have to charge a fee. If you're giving me all these new powers...
But address my fear here, or my worry. Not my worry, but...
Anxiety.
My anxiety.
There you go.
I have a house, right? But I'm also a good person.
Yes.
I know I'm a good person because I've grown older and I feel the same way as I did a long time ago about these certain elemental things. And that is, I feel I'm moved by the idea that a nurse who salves my wounds in hospital if I hurt myself, and the guard who tries to protect me at night when I'm walking through the streets, hopefully, who are married to each other, can't afford to live in the capital city. That makes me angry.
Oh, sorry for your trouble, son.
But does it not make you angry?
No.
Why not?
I have learned to accept, and that means that you accept that there are certain statements which are true. They're verities, they're called. So one of the verities is that cities have an inverse relationship between the proximity to the centre and the price. of everything, of renting, of owning, of doing things. And your imaginary nurse and her imaginary husband, you're picturing them working in a hospital right in the middle of Dublin. There are lots of other options available for them, but they're a good one to pick on because they also dwell on the fact that housing is also a social service. So it's a necessary precursor to having a healthy functioning city, the same way as roads and sewers and wires are. So affordable housing is a necessary precursor to satisfactory social services.
Do we in Ireland have more of a predilection to seeing housing as an investment asset than they do in other cultures or other economies?
It appears slightly. I've looked into the data about that. Slightly. Not phenomenally, and certainly not our standard man at the back of the pub truth of all things. Our level of home ownership peaked back in 1972.
Yeah.
Been falling ever since. So we're becoming rapidly convergent with the European norm. And we've about 1 million non-Irish people living among us now, many of whom come from urban cultures where the idea of living in an apartment is the most normal, rational, sensible thing you can do.
Yeah, but it's not as easy to live in an apartment in Ireland as it is to live in an apartment in Germany, I don't think.
Not yet, no. So we're on a trajectory, and we are an urbanising society, and there's a lot of things we're learning to do.
Yeah, there?
That's one of them, yeah.
So you think, in a sense, we're making progress then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How are we making progress regarding, for example, people who want to rent? I mean, you hear every month now, you hear the annual, the monthly rent is now over 2,000 for the first time in our history.
We are learning because we are doing what you're doing. We're articulating the problem. We're taking it seriously. We're taking policy measures. Some work, some don't. We have, last time I counted, 5 different versions of a housing agency out there that give advice about support for rents, about the housing agency itself, about housing finance. So we're starting to put the architecture in place to fix it. And in fixing it, you just come back to my really crappy standard of we're making it less bad. And each year to get a little less bad, you know. And that means then when you go down to places like Austria or Germany and we say, why can't we be like them? You realise, well, yes, they have access to housing, but we couldn't tolerate the social strictures that operate around that. So,
like what?
Well, like my daughter abandoned Germany after Berlin after 3 years and said, this place is insane, you know.
Why?
Sublets off sublets off sublets, moving in and the people leaving ahead of you, taking the sink with them.
Okay.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And general levels of social control. I remember meeting a bunch of people I used to work with the UN and we were from all over the world, met in Manchester. We all agreed to meet in a particular street. I happened to fall in step beside a Dutch woman I did work with. And as we walked along, going towards the restaurant, she turned to me and said, are we walking on the right side of the footpath?
Oh, God.
I was saying, yeah, we're fine, you know. So there are degrees of social control that we are completely unaware of even exist and that are accepted by many other cultures and societies in Europe. And we're working our way toward...
Are we?
We are, slowly.
Okay. But it's not necessarily all down to, like you'll hear, the supply then.
No. I get myself in a lot of trouble.
Come on, tell me about that then.
Again, more trouble.
Go on.
So I had...
You're on camera as well now, so I can put the bits you get in trouble, I can put them into sound bites.
Yeah.
And I can chop them up.
I was doing one of these thingy bobs in the mornings on a Sunday where you talk about what it says in the papers.
Yeah.
And I'm not normally allowed near those things, so I say this kind of
Was
stuff.
it Brendan O'Connor was talking to you? Or did he ask you about your mental health?
He did.
He did, yeah.
And he looked...
Is supply the problem, Conor? Or are you
He
here?
looked like I had given him a parrot for breakfast. Because when I said the
That's
following...
his default face though.
Fuck.
You're allowed to say that as well.
He did. I'm cutting him. He said... I said to him, no, I said that supplying more housing isn't going to solve the problem. What?
What?
Yeah. And I said, the problem isn't the supply of housing, it's the affordability of the housing. And you could build, and I used to say this when I was chair of the housing agency, you could build 100,000 houses a year or 200,000 houses a year. And if people couldn't afford them, they'd be useless.
Okay.
And what comes from that is if you start making the housing more affordable, right? You look at the guard, the nurse, she might be your daughter, right? And you look at her and think, oh, it's great. She's been able to afford a home at last, right? And then you look at the house next door and it just sold for 150,000 euros less than it did last year, because that's what affordability looks like. It's about prices falling. So we all want to be speculators one at a time in delighting and seeing the the value of our house increasing, while at the same time being horrified to see that the price of my daughter's accommodation is going up in lockstep with the increase in value of my house.
Yeah, so obviously there's a duality going on in Irish society where the stakeholders want to see their price of the houses go up, and the people who are outside the gates want to see the prices go down so that they can get in. How do we solve that, or how do we make that problem least bad?
Least bad is by addressing it as a financial asset and treat it with things like taxes and central bank lending rules and a whole suite.
Give us an example. Try and give me a little menu of things there that you could think you could do.
Property tax.
Go on. Talk to me about property tax.
Well, we don't really do effective property tax in Ireland. Property tax is...
Well, we tax property.
Yeah, but a tiny bit. My friends in London will pay 15,000 or 20,000 a year in property tax.
Is that right?
Yeah. I go down yeah. So we just don't know what things like property tax are. So then there would be transaction taxes. Increasing transaction taxes, treating them like capital gains tax, that if you flip a house after a certain number of years, you pay quite hefty penalties on it. Yeah. And you're getting at the investor now.
We don't have that in Ireland now,
no,
flipping houses. No. I can see that's a...
Well, we do. You see, a lot of the housing that's being built is being built as build-to-let apartments. And if you get on your bicycle and go around the M50, which you probably shouldn't do, you're passing slab after slab of new apartments that are empty. Yeah. And this is a thing that occasionally happens during effervescences of the property market, where it is better for your portfolio to own but not rent a place than to rent it, because renting is messy and costs and wears and depreciation and all that kind of stuff.
Is there a normal level of homelessness?
Yes.
Tell me about that, because again, that might be emotionally triggering for some people.
I was destroyed by that quote as well. So homelessness,
when you were destroyed, you mean as in online or?
Absolutely, yeah, vilified. For pointing out that there are very good measures of homelessness all over Europe and the United States, and you can measure it in different ways. You can define what it means by being unsheltered, or you can define it by being by the extent to which there's a ratio between the number of those people and the number of people in other types of accommodation. So homelessness, where do we start?
Please do.
I'm going to just tell you now. But you give me a figure. How many homeless people do you think there are in Ireland? Ballpark, to the nearest 10,000.
10,000.
There you go. Well done. The various different people dealing with the welfare of unsheltered people in Dublin do a count every year. They go out and they count doorsteps and back lanes and this, that and the other. How many do they find?
I don't know.
About 90. Sometimes 110. It fluctuates a little bit from year to year. Hasn't budged in 20 years. That's a homeless person. That's an unsheltered person.
Yes.
Right? But you know that awful word that we like to use, which is conflation. So a charity, which shall remain nameless, takes a photograph of somebody in those circumstances and then applies the statistic you gave a moment ago.
Very interesting. Very
exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
And what those people are is they're people who are in a particular category of the housing waiting list.
Yes.
It's just
so you're saying that it's technical homelessness.
Correct. None of those people are sleeping in doorways, but there are charities. Now, they stopped it since I started Kick Up about a few years ago, showing a photograph of
What about families living in hotels?
It's another version of the same thing. Where do you think those families came from?
I don't know. You tell me.
They made a decision to get themselves onto a particular version of the housing list by changing whatever accommodation procedure they had previously. So one of the things you could do, for instance, is you could incentivize natal home stabilisation. So that means you continue to live with your mammy for just an extra 6 months or 9 months or 12 months, and there'd be incentives there. But when they did a study into the causes of homelessness, family disputes was a very major driver of people putting themselves onto a homeless list for their local authority. You have to ask them, where do these people come from? Why do they do it? And roots to homelessness. Abuse in the home is another one. People are being abused. So it's a very real issue sometimes. Alcoholism, the behaviour of the person who becomes homeless. And studyings of that mean that you can't just use that big, huge, fat brush of homelessness and slop it around like whitewash. Get down to and the same thing then.
I understand. Get down to the nitty gritty and examine the data.
The boring stuff. And the same with people say, it's terrible. We've got all these vacant houses. Why doesn't somebody do something about it? Well, when I was in the housing agency, we went over to England and Scotland. They have people called a vacant homes officer. It's their job in the county council. And the reason they have them is that most places that are vacant because of a menu of up to about 20 different things. It's never the same two in the 20 that are causing it. And these vacant homes people identify a house, identify the owner, try and help them work their way through the thing and out the far side of it. Hard work.
How does it feel like being vilified? If you tough skin, or do you feel personally aggrieved? I've
an even better armour. I don't have any participation in social media, and I have a wife who does vigorously, and she says, "Oh, you're not very popular today," and that's all I get over breakfast.
Really?
I've learned not to ask. No.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have a look.
Are you mad? What does upset me is things like my family and friends and my children do, and they tell me, "God, Dad, you're being roasted today."
Yeah,
grand.
I get that. I did an impression of somebody the other day. It was actually Ciaran Noon, right? And now, it wasn't a bad impression. I'm delicious. Do you know that fella? Yeah, chocolate. I love chocolate. What the fuck are you talking about? Right, and I did an impression of him. Anyway, they posted it online in Today FM. Anyway, what I didn't realise was that all of Ciaran's friends, not Ciaran's friends, but all of Ciaran's followers swarmed. Just went, "Get that bastard off, a fucking terrible impression, worst impression ever. He's hung up, he's a washed up old blah blah. That's a disgraceful impression." As if I had committed a crime.
And the crime was just that you did a bad impression,
or that I did a decent, but maybe what is an impression?
Yeah.
And anyways, but so my son Dash, who's 18, said, "Dad, I knew this. You're getting absolutely rinsed."
Yeah.
Absolutely rinsed. And I went, "Why am I getting rinsed?" I could have told you half an hour ago. He is a protected species online. So anyway, they told you you're getting rinsed, and so you don't read it yourself.
No.
Let me just I've been listening to you now, right, for a while, and I mean, you tell me.
It's our first date.
I know, but you tell me. To me, you come across a little bit as a kind of an economic rationalist. So you're a person who says...
That's not a nice thing necessarily.
No, I actually agree with you. It's not a nice thing. So you're coming across a little bit like, Mario, there are inalienable facts out there, not opinions.
No.
There are facts.
Yeah.
And when you dig deep down into the data, this is how it is. Not how you necessarily want to hear it is. So, for example, Ireland isn't peculiar or anomalous. The world has a problem with housing. The world has a problem with the financialization of housing, the commodification, the turning of houses into investments, and that Ireland doesn't necessarily have a huge problem with homelessness either. Indeed, you said to me, look at the figures. Do you think that, I mean, I'm trying to vilify you, but do you think maybe you come across as a little bit rationalistic, solely rationalistic, as opposed to, well, you could argue with me, as opposed to making stuff up, Mario?
Well, making stuff up has a fine history, you know. And aircraft fell out of the skies a lot in the 1940s and 50s because people who were material scientists made up the facts about this metal will be okay at that temperature and that height. So we do live in a world where facts are pretty useful things. So yes, I would err on the side of rationality all the time. But through marriage and divorce and having children and all that, I've learned the world is not black and white either. And that our opinions are part of our culture. They're part of the things we value, things we are important, that we believe are important. And you can't separate those things out. So it is a fact that Ireland's housing figures are what I say they are, but it's also a fact that we're people who care deeply about it. And we seem to have slightly more sensitive buttons than other people to press about it. That's who we are.
Is that because of Richard Harris's performance in the field?
Could have been.
Who you look a little bit like.
Don't.
They drove us from the field. They drove us away. Tig.
Well, go down and try and take a field off a farmer in the hills up in Sardinia and see how he reacts, because he still has a shotgun. Yeah.
They drove us from the field. Tig.
So the human,
terrible impression of Italian.
Yeah.
Mario, you're great. You're delicious. Don't worry about him.
So So the cultural thing is an element. It's not a huge element, but it is an element. And in terms of the rationality, there is a case for saying, well, either somebody says what the facts are, the emperor has new clothes, and we're seeing a country across the Atlantic from us where facts are increasingly evaporating.
Well, I'll stop you there actually, because it's interesting for a person like you. No, because a person like you then, who's you just said there that you are a rationalist.
Yeah.
This must drive you. This must be a very great interest to you. What's happening across there? I remember a moment when I thought it all went pear-shaped. Mm-hmm. I think it all went pear-shaped in about 2017 when Kellyanne Conway appeared on Fox News, and somebody went, "No, well, Miss Conway, that's a fact," and she said, "Well, we have our own alternative facts."
Yeah,
she said. I think that's when really.
The precise moment I saw the wheels falling off the wagon, it was Barack Obama standing up at the press conference club and the dinner, and the whole audience was full of the great and the good, and he was the best act in town. And he had them all eating out of the palm of his hands, and I suddenly realised all those people were absolutely convinced that they were right, they were virtuous, they knew where the facts were, they knew what was cool and what wasn't, and that would be fine, good luck to them. But then when you get one of their ilk step out the door, called Hillary Clinton, and called all the rest of those people the despicables,
the deplorables,
that's the problem, is creating a tent and then locking everybody else out. I used to live in the United States, and when I lived there, I witnessed some of the worst poverty I've seen anywhere in the world. People forget there is that side of, some states in the United States, going back to housing, 30% of the accommodation is in trailer homes.
Yeah.
And these aren't the nice ones you get in British Bay, I can tell you.
No. I've been saying it on this podcast for years as well. 47 to 50 million people on food stamps in the United States.
And we don't even understand that kind of poverty. I mean, those places where the trailer parks are in the United States, everybody forgets the trailer park isn't really the issue. It's that it's outside the ordinance of the township it's in. So there's no access to healthcare or education or anything.
Is that right?
We've no idea what poverty looks like. None.
Yeah.
None,
And yet there is no media you will find in the United States, no media, hardly, who will disagree with somebody coming on and saying, they're coming to the greatest country in the world. They're knocking on the door to get into the greatest country in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it's staggering. It's the greatest country in the world for only a small cohort of people who earn, and you can nearly put a figure on it, who earn probably about over $450,000 a year.
Yeah, and they're taking that ladder up after them. I mean, we're in this problem that is more of the same, of the virtue signalling, of breaking everything down into binaries. The United States is an amazing place. It's full of amazing people.
Of course it is.
Some of the best friends I ever made in my
and the
life.
greatest people.
Yeah. But you know what? This isn't a bad place either.
No.
Different measures. This is an amazing country.
Yeah.
The problem with this building and all the people with the microphones and all that is it's so easy to talk about the bad stuff, but you follow somebody who is on a dodgy journey in their life through mental health or physical health or poverty or trauma or whatever it is, follow them in detail, follow the detail. This has become a fantastic country for minding ourselves, minding each other and putting our resources into that.
You think so?
Well, show me a better one.
Confronting high credit card debt can feel scary. But the good news is, if you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt, financial relief options are now available. National Debt Relief is currently offering debt relief designed to reduce what you owe, fast-tracking your way to being debt-free. If you qualify for debt relief, you may be able to pay back significantly less than what you owe and save thousands of dollars. Imagine only paying one low monthly program payment you can afford and saving money as you become debt-free. National Debt Relief has already helped bring debt relief to over 550,000 U.S. consumers, earning thousands of 5-star reviews and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. You're stronger than your credit card debt. Take the first step and visit nationaldebtrelief.com to see what debt relief you qualify for. That's nationaldebtrelief.com.
Would you see yourself as a sort of an economic conservative or an economic liberal? Sorry to put a binary choice to you.
Yeah, you just did that, didn't you? Well, when I ask myself...
You said already at the beginning, you do believe in capitalism.
Exactly. When I have this conversation with myself, where I end up with is that what seems to work the least bad, as the Winston Churchill joke about democracy, is managed capitalism. It has to be managed in a context. So capitalism left by itself is like leaving a fire and walking off.
I totally agree.
The tended fire.
I totally agree. The American model of rampant capitalism seems to premise the idea, or seems to posit the notion that the free market left of its own free will result in best possible outcomes for everybody ultimately, right? Which then kind of extrapolates from that human beings will do the right thing, okay? Or sorry, human beings
left to their own devices.
Human beings operating with only self-interest in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, will eventuate these results. But this is a negative framing of humans, right? Basically, what it sees us as primitive, grabbing, bullying, and colonialist. Ultimately, Whereas there are other people in the world with different socio-philosophical positions. For example, person I particularly like, the Rutger Bregman. This guy is a Dutch philosopher, Dutch political economist philosopher. And he was the guy that became famous for being in Davos. And he appeared in Davos with all the billionaires. And he was on stage and he went, okay, yeah, so let's, I think we're missing a problem here. I think we're all missing the elephant in the room. And everybody looked at him, all the billionaires like, the elephant in the room is, why aren't you paying more taxes?
Yes.
Okay, and he got into trouble for this. He got vilified around the world, but he also became famous. And then people spoke to him more on TV and radio and everything. And it turned out that he has a very optimistic view of humankind. He believes humans' natural instinct is community and to help each other.
It is, yeah. That's our default.
Exactly. Yeah. I believe this as well.
I have friends who, I'm going to get in trouble now for outing this, who are all in the charity sector, right? I detest charities. And people say, why don't you do something for a charity? I say, I pay my taxes. And if you want to do more for those things, pay your taxes. Have you paid your full share of taxes? That's how you help it. Because a charity is a type of monopolization of a particular topic or interest. And I, the rich person, am going to get to tell you, the poor person or the person who's got a physical handicap,
what's important.
You know, and it's the society who decides that what's important. That's why you pay your taxes. And we put them through the filter, through the big hopper, the big masher that's called the dial. We all elbow it out and we all say, we finally agreed this is the most important thing. And that's grand. That's been through due process. I like that.
Yeah.
So managed capitalism, to answer your question, that's where I fall. I don't know what the name for that kind of person is, but it's understanding that the need for the engine of greediness and for winning, that's an important thing. And I have friends who are very red in tooth and claw, and a lot of my more opinionated friends can't believe that I hang around with people like that, but they are red in tooth and claw, and they have to be admired, like you'd admire a tiger or something like that. Just amazing human beings to see. But they're not the sole answer. You wouldn't let them run anything.
I have this theory as well that when free market capitalism is let to go unmanaged, right, it then can metastasize, not only through the economy, but it metastasizes and infects the political situation. And this is what's happening in the United States. So I have this theory. It's my own theory, and I presume it's a theory that's related to other theories that are out there, but it's my own.
Good cover.
No, it is, but it's my own feeling. Because I've been burnishing it up, cooking it up for years. And to boil it down to one, my point is that America got the leader it ultimately deserved. Okay, and let me
applauding. Yeah,
okay, but let me go back.
Yeah.
Why did it get the leader it deserved? Because for 250 years, it's been slowly warming to the idea of Herr Trump, Donald Trump arriving. How? Well, because it made a series of rules. It said, "You're free." Okay, we're free. You're free to say what you want. Say what you want. Can I say what I want anywhere? Yes. Say it as much as you want anywhere. Can I say it on this new thing called TV? Yeah? Okay, I can. Yeah. Am I allowed to say whatever I want? Yes. Am I allowed to criticize whoever I want? Can I insult somebody? Yes. Okay. All right. Can I cheat? Ooh, yes, but we have laws. Okay, but can I hire lawyers? Unlimited amount of lawyers. Yeah. Oh, you must hire lawyers. This is part of our constitution. Yeah. It's the right to defend yourself. Yes. Can I hire 100 lawyers? Yes. Can I hire all the best lawyers and deny can I intimidate lawyers that if you don't work for me, I'll make sure you never work? You can. Yeah. It's part of the law. You're kind of finding a loophole there. Yeah. Okay. Well done. What else do you like? What else can I do? Well, we love people who make it. What do you mean make it? Well, we love people who are seen to make it. You mean famous people. Can I become famous? Yes. So what am I going? I'm going to become famous, rich, say what I want, hire all the lawyers in the world. Can I become as rich as I want? Yes. Can I buy everything? Can I buy everything? right? Can I get people to build stuff for me? Yes. Can I not pay them when they build it? No.
If you've good enough lawyers.
No, exactly. But can I use the lawyers that I talked about a minute ago to sue those guys back and say, I'll only pay a quarter what I get? You could.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Fine.
if you win, good luck to you. Yeah.
Now, just one more question. Can I run for political office? Yes, we have a thing. Any human is over 30. Were you born here? Yes, I was. You can run for office. Yeah. Okay. Can I tell a lie? What's a lie? I don't know. It's what I believe, or the truth.
The willing
my truth.
suspension of disbelief.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what we got. We got the guy who found all the loopholes.
Lined them up.
All the loopholes in a perfect storm of shit in the Constitution.
The shitification, as they're called these days.
He lined it all up, and then you ended up with this guy called Donald Trump. There had been previous incarnations in various different ways. People like Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was experimenting with the idea, can we put a celebrity in charge of the country? Nah. Remember, it was laughed at.
Yeah.
And then it did.
And then we had Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And then you had Arnold Schwarzenegger. Can you put rich people, celebrities, so this is what we ended up with. I'm really convinced that that's what's happened. And I don't know.
That's a series of statements of facts.
Yeah.
They're correct.
Yeah. One of the funny or the interesting aspects of this was the word truth. That
Truth Social.
Yeah.
1984.
Yeah.
That's what their brilliance in 1984 was. Yeah. They called it Truth,
Yeah.
Ministry of Truth.
Yeah. I know, the Ministry of Truth.
It's literally come true.
Yeah.
Literally.
But when truth becomes the most powerful person in the room says it's true, that's the issue here. So
truth
the bully is the truth.
Well, the problem is that one of the what do the guards call it? Lines of inquiry. One of the lines of inquiry I'm following is that the truth itself has become really badly damaged by well-intentioned people who thought they were doing the right thing. And the word that's used for it is noble cause corruption.
Yeah.
So in my fields to do with the environment and stuff like that, I'm watching huge swathes of things happening that are just not true. But no one's standing up to say it. If you think I got in trouble for stuff I've said about housing, you should see what happens in the day job that I do, where I'm...
Please say one or two of those things now.
I won't touch them.
You don't want to say them
Never
now?
work again.
Really?
Never work.
You won't say them to me now?
No, never work again. And yet...
Well, then I'm to take it.
Okay, so for instance...
I'm to take it that one or two of your views are construed as being controversial by the environmental...
I am the environmental thing. I own and run the oldest, biggest environmental consultancy in Ireland. Right? I am that problem, but I am in the middle of that problem saying this is not true. And I'll give you two parallel examples if you have the time for it. When I used to run this department in college, in what's now TU Dublin. And one of the programs we had was a master's program called Planning and Development. People would come in who were bankers and they'd learn about planning law, and people who were involved in development would learn about banking. Funny blended thing. It was a very good program. And one of the students I had was doing their dissertation. I was his dissertation supervisor, and he was administering a questionnaire that was based on a series of known predictors for the existence of a property bubble. Right, so he had found a way to boil all this down into a survey. And because of his own seniority in the world of banking, he was able to administer it to other peers of his in the sector. Every single person that he interviewed as a peer all said that, yes, all the conditions of a severe housing bubble already exist in Ireland. All of them. And then each of them, when he finished the interview, he said, well, if you think that's what's going to happen, why aren't you saying anything about it? He said, because look what I'd be like. I'd be made a fool of. And follow that on with the fact that I, in 2006 or 2007, gave a presentation, because I used to do talks about the future and what the future's going to be like, to this enormous room full of all the bankers. I won't say what bank they were from, but they were all in the room together. And I said, property, it's going to collapse. It's going to lose about 50 to 60% of its value. It'll all happen in the next 12 to 18 months, right? And I said, if you don't believe me, you don't have to, but I've sold all my property.
You said?
I did, and I had, except my house, right? As I was leaving the room, just when I finished, the chair or whatever it was sort of laughed and said, oh, sure, Conor, if even half of what you said came true, half of this room would have no jobs in 12 months. And then as I was leaving, it was in the basement of the Marion Hotel, and there's a kind of a corridor as you go in that has these big windows that aren't actually windows, they're just gaps, so you can see into the room. And unbeknownst to him, as I was being led out, I overheard him say to his PA, never waste our time with that kind of rubbish again. Right? couple of years later, I was in a pub, fierce dig in the ribs, turned around. This big, huge guy was there. I said, I got your attention. Yeah. He said, you don't remember me, do you? No. He said, I was chair of that talk you gave that day. He said, I've never forgotten it. I've been in therapy because of it, in fact, he said, because like everybody else in the room, we were told what was going to happen and we did nothing about it. And he said, I just want you to know what you did to my life. You know?
It's the equivalent in political terms of the slow-moving coup. It sort of happens slowly and then all of a sudden. Same,
you're the guy, Porrick, who I was in touch with about this. I did 2 shows with Matt Cooper, with him saying the same thing and saying this is all going to collapse, completely collapse. It happened very quickly. Absolute total dog's abuse for saying it. Grant, not unused to that. And then a couple of years later, same interview, same man, and I said, it's all going to finish really quickly, it'll recover really fast. And I used the analogy of a ping pong ball that had been held under water, let it go. Absolute madness, you complete madser, Conor, there you are again. Right? So those kind of factors are very readily predicted. The problem isn't predicting. The problem is getting people to listen. And the problem with listening is an unwillingness to depart from the consensus. So going back into my own field, the one I'm being very careful not to talk too much about, is that there are these verities, these truths, and people hang an immense amount of their identity out of them. So one of the things I learned, I ended up quitting teaching, which I love. I miss teaching so badly, but I wasn't able to cope with the COVID stuff and I had to just step aside. And one of the things I learned was I would teach people these, again, at master's level. They'd come in and I'd do the introductory course and I had to introduce them to a whole lot of verities about the environment. And what I learned from that is that when you take away somebody's opinions, you're taking away part of their identity. And it's an incredibly crushing thing to do. And I saw myself helping them by sharing facts that clearly contradicted all of these truths they thought they came in with. So I gave up very quickly. And what I did instead was I would start the first day, big whiteboard, everybody write down on a piece of paper, what are the 3 things about the environment that worry you the most, that made you come in and want to do this course. Get the piece of paper, chop them up, hand them up to the top of the room, count it, end up with the 40 people in the room, the 40 most pressing problems, and then take the piece of paper back out, give it randomly out of a hat to everybody in the room. I said, now your job is to go off and just take that one topic, just that one topic, and you are to research it and make a presentation back to your class. And the only 2 rules are you can only use 2 PowerPoint slides and you must demonstrate that you've gone to the most authoritative source in the world with the longest data set. That was it. And so they did. And week after week after week, they would stand up in front of each other saying, look, I don't know how to tell you this, but there is no such thing as peak oil. But the penguins in Antarctica are all doing just fine, thanks very much. But, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm dealing with every day of the week is a whole bunch of people who've got really strong opinions about the environment and what people should or shouldn't do about it. And they wouldn't know the environment if it fell on them. You know?
In 2007, around 2007, I remember being in a taxi and the taxi driver saying to me, yeah, well, I'm off over to Thailand there, just keep an eye on me 4 properties. And I'm there, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, sell everything you have. Quick.
Right? Yeah. I just remember thinking, this is bollocks. And
he's allowed to say that. Why am I allowed to say that?
You said fuck earlier on.
Oh.
But anyway, I also remember seeing these articles in the Sunday Independent, like, all the yummy mummies are heading down to British to join their millionaire banker husbands in their multi-million caravans. And I remember thinking, along with the guy that I met in the taxi, I think something is a bit wrong here.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm getting the same feeling from some articles I'm reading now. I think it's always when Irish people are getting notions. We call them notions in this country. And I'm getting a few notions vibes. And I'm wondering, does that mean, is my intel telling me we might be heading towards something that might be a little unsavory?
This brings us back to the Brendan O'Connor conversation, which you interrupted with your fantastic imitation of. So I had said to him that the problem with housing, that more supply won't fix the problem. The problem is the affordability, and that until we address that, and that affordability, again, has a universal all over the world, that either in terms of rental or in terms of purchase, it should be about 3.5 times your income, roughly. And if you're there, you're the sweet spot.
It's 10 at the moment.
Yeah, I know. Just saying, but that's the sweet spot, and that you're addressing that. You address that, and not building more houses.
Yeah.
Building more houses aren't going to make that any more affordable.
Yeah.
But setting out to say why are our houses so expensive, you can do something about that. You can drill into that, and you can incentivize that. So we in this country go on and on, especially some particular political party, about homes for first-time buyers or beloved. Right? In other countries, they call that a starter home. If I buy a starter home in the Netherlands, it has precisely 6 components: 4 walls, a roof and a floor. And that's it, boys and girls.
I see.
That's
a starter home isn't a fully equipped house.
No.
Yeah.
And Michael and Bridget from Laois, who sort of say, well, I'm not moving in this, got a €50,000 fitted kitchen and a €25,000 fitted bathroom and pelmets and curtains and minge, blah, 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 right? That's not a starter home. So we could have very affordable houses tomorrow morning if local authorities were to say, those fields over there, they're for starter homes. And a starter home is the following. And if you build any more than that, you can't have your license or whatever it is. Do it in the morning. Do it in the morning. And then if you added to that the fact that we have this incredible new sets of ways of building things, we call them garden homes, we call them all kinds of stuff. But I call them a factory finished floor, a factory finished home. I was down in Chile years ago, and I used to do stuff for the UN, and they had this terrible earthquake, appalling earthquake, and they lost a couple of 100,000 houses. And they had this brilliant prime minister who said, rebuilding this is just going to be a license to print money for every bent builder I've ever met in my life. That's not going to happen on my watch. Every in Chile is going to have the right to have their house rebuilt on the place it is. Where it was, which sounds mad, but they did it because they basically built a little factory on the outskirts of every town and every village, and they'd get your plans, do it all up, build it in timber, break it back down into stuff, go in the back of a truck, go out, lay the foundations, put it back up again. Factory finished housing. And once you've seen a factory finished house, you'll never go back to a handmade one that was done out in the rain on a February afternoon by a guy who had a hangover. You'll never go near that again. Factory finished houses are incredible things, right? But they look just like an ordinary house, but the pieces they're made out of are proper machined, and you mass produce the kitchens and the stairs and all the stuff that goes into them.
Okay. And do you think we're at a kind of a little tipping point at the moment?
Huge.
Do you?
Huge, yeah. Currently, there are estimates that the global value of stocks is now twice the value of global GDP. One is real money and one is not.
Mm-hmm. Well, as Tommy Tiernan often said, all this apparently we owe $17 trillion. The world owes 17 trillion. The Martians!
A man at the back of the moon, yeah.
Yeah. And he went, I think he's joke. I loved his routine, because his routine went, so I owe money to you, but you owe money to him, and he's owed money to her, and she owes money to them. Why don't we just go back to the end of the line, find the fella then, and fucking kill him?
Well, the stocks versus the GDP, like GDP is real money. Somebody made a real spoon, right? And they bought the real spoon, and that increased the value of that particular part of the economy. But the guy betting on the real spoon didn't do anything for anybody. And like it's a type of pollution that's moving now out from housing. It's hit things like energy. The entire world of energy, the entire world's energy, has now gone down the same route.
Of the financialization.
So we now have wind farms, huge wind farms, that are being paid money to not produce. We're seeing ourselves in Ireland talk about spending billions to develop wind out in the North Atlantic that is never, ever, ever going to be even remotely financially viable. But it has been structured in a way to create investment vehicles that are attractive for people to invest in.
Yeah, I mean, that's another story. Okay, because it'd be interesting to talk to you about the environment, the thing you don't want to talk about, apparently.
Did I say that?
You did, yeah. You said, I can't talk about it.
Kill her now.
You can't talk about it. Well, listen, I'll tell you what, we'll leave it there, and I'll talk to Patrick to see if we'll get you publicly cancelled and hanged again. But on the more bright side, we could get you in again to talk about something else, because you're a very, very interesting fellow, Conor, and I'm delighted I met you. And obviously, I like the way your brain operates as well. It's very active and fertile. Yeah, but it's fertile and active. And thank you. And thank you for meeting me. And my thanks to Conor Skehan for coming in and sharing his thoughts with me on the Mario Rosenstock podcast. My thanks to you, as always, for listening. If you can, tell one other person about this podcast if you enjoyed it, and encourage them to listen to it. We have so many guests down through the last 4 years for you to scroll back and have a listen to. Really, really interesting interviews. I hope you'll agree. My thanks to deluxebathrooms.ie. Their super autumn sale is now on, blockbuster sale, up to 70% off Europe's biggest bathroom brands. Get down there as soon as you can, or get online. And that's it for this week from the Mario Rosenstock Podcast. We'll see you same time, same place next week.